Yes.
Hello to everyone here in the round. It's a pleasure for me to continue this series of webinars. Those who participated in the past know that this was organized through the Leonardo Academy. We are now organizing this directly in the project due to some staff changes and also staff changes, let's say, in the coordination of the project. As Jean-Sébastien mentioned, I took over from Didier Bosbeuf from ADEME the overall coordination of this project here, while before, together with Enadata, Fraunhofer assumed the technical coordination. So I'm not totally a stranger to this project. I would like, in the following few slides, before we start a broader view on the efficiency directive, energy efficiency directive, and the contributions which the project ODYSSEE-MURE can make, I would briefly introduce this project to those which are not familiar with it, but not in a very lengthy manner. You may get more information on the relevant website. And then I will also give some short insight what we intend to do in the different webinars which are forthcoming. First of all, what is ODYSSEE-MURE? ODYSSEE-MURE is a continuation of a European Union project under the LIFE program and will run for the period of time up to 2027. And we focus on the national implementation and the monitoring of key provisions of the Energy Efficiency Directive recast from late 2023. ODYSSEE-MURE are at first two databases. One is ODYSSEE database based on statistical data and which help to follow up, to monitor energy efficiency trend among different European Union countries and energy community countries. Those are different countries on the Balkan region, not part yet of the European Union, but also countries like Ukraine, Georgia, or Moldova that are also in expectation of joining the European Union in some short period of time. The MURE database is a database on measures, energy efficiency measures and policies. And what is most important for this database and distinguishes it very strongly from other databases, it provides quantitative and semi-quantitative information as well as qualitative information on different energy efficiency policies which are implemented at European Union or national levels. These are the two databases, and in addition, the project does also provide tools and analysis, tools that support the analysis in support of the Energy Efficiency Directive. I am mentioning a few of them here. For example, the decomposition tool running under the ODYSSEE part of the project, which helps to understand why energy demand is evolving in some direction, increasing, decreasing. What are the factors that support or that hamper the change in energy demand that hence target achievement, as set in the Energy Efficiency Directive with Article 4. We have a policy assessment tool which allows to assess the different policies which are proposed. Remember, I just said policies are evaluated to a large degree quantitatively. We have an energy efficiency scoreboard which allows to compare the energy efficiency status, trends, and policies of the countries. We have an energy saving tool which helps to understand what are the savings that have been achieved, both top down and bottom up. And quite new is a link to another project which is called MICAT, This is about multiple benefits or multiple impacts. And so based on the savings which are established from a top-down perspective, statistical perspective, or the bottom-up perspective from different policies, from that we can evaluate also multiple benefits, and this is something new in the project, and we will use it more often compared to the past. And this is something which is required very frequently because we have different pathways to climate neutrality, and this tool helps to identify a broader set of impacts compared to the pure energy savings. And last but not least, we also organize trainings, dissemination events, for example, on quantitative and semi-quantitative assessment of policy impacts or exploitation and analysis with energy efficiency indicators. And this has, for example, been applied very recently in our first physical seminar on ODYSSEE-MURE in Moldova, which is one of the energy community parties. And those countries in particular have to report, for example, like EU member states on ACPs, and which are very much in need of this type of analysis tools and so on. Next slide, please. Jean-Sebastian, can you move? Okay, it takes a little bit of time. Thank you very much. I mentioned the project, but the heart of the project are the national teams. We have national teams from energy efficiency agencies from the different member states, and I know it's too small to be read, but the logos indicate how many of those are participating. And I also mentioned energy community parties, which are also participating through frequently through energy agencies in the project. Next slide, please. Yeah, it always takes some time to move forward. Thank you. As my last slide before we hand over to the next speaker, I wanted to give you some short insight in what we intend to do with the Energy Efficiency Academy over the next 3 years. It is in fact different bundles of webinars and policy briefs, which are closely associated to the webinars. And they are roughly clustered around 3 major issues. We know that under the new commission, clean and competitive industry is a focus of the efforts. And this is the reason why we will have a cluster of webinars focusing on energy efficiency and the decarbonization of industry. 3 are mentioned here below under this first topic. Notably in December, so very soon, we will have the webinar given by Enerdata focusing on energy efficiency trends in the European industry, which will be given 16th of December at the same time. Then we will focus in cooperation with the International Energy Agency, IEA, on the multiple impacts of energy efficiency in industry. We have started discussions and interaction with IEA on this topic, and we will in cooperation with the EEE Zero Carbon Industry event in February, focus on the industrial energy efficiency scoreboard. So these are 3 examples for this first cluster of topics. Then the second arc is focusing on key topics of the revised Energy Efficiency Directive, notably the energy efficiency first principle from Article 3. Then, as a new topic in the Energy Efficiency Directive, the public sector, it's not totally new, but its extension to a broader set of public buildings, notably of public sector energy consumption, is new and requires a strong focus. Then a relatively new issue are data centers. So we are also going to focus on this topic and the decarbonization of heating and cooling sectors, which compared to the electricity sector is a sector which is still very strongly in need of more ambitious policies. And the third topic we had already started in the previous academy, where we focused on the social dimension, and we will continue to focus on energy poverty issues and on what I call the missing article in the EED, which is the energy sufficiency aspects, which have a lot to do with behaviors and hence also societal discussion and compromise or synthesis around this topic. With this, I stop my introduction to ODYSSEE-MURE and to the Academy, and I give back to Jean-Sébastien to introduce the forthcoming speakers. Thank you very much to all.
Thanks a lot, Wolfgang, for the introduction and reminding how ODYSSEE-MURE works and what participants can find on the website. You can find a few links in the chat, including about the next webinar that Wolfgang announced. And as today we've also the new period of the project deals with the implementation of the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive. And you may know that the transposition deadline for this directive was last month. We are very pleased to welcome on stage now Ivo Schmidt, Deputy Head of the Unit on Energy Efficiency at the European Commission's General Directorate of Energy, to give us an update about the EED and possibly as well the upcoming EU framework for energy efficiency.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're good now. Great. Thanks so much, Jean-Sébastien, and also Wolfgang for the introduction and the provoking opening words, or your final words on what we still have to legislate by the EED. I personally don't think that we should go down the route of prescribing to each European how they should behave, but rather work on the overall framework on how to make that happen for them. But that point aside, we all know how important the energy efficiency framework is. The last 20 years of our combined energy savings obligations first, EED, EPBD, the labels, the eco-design, all that sort of package in place have allowed us to save around 27% of our energy in the EU. Then the crisis hit us and it made it even more stark and important to realize how important that is. We import still 1 billion euros of fossil fuels per day, and at the same time we know that Europe would continue to be such a sort of a slave to global energy. So the best thing we can do is really consider energy efficiency our first fuel and continue pushing for that to make sure that we remain or regain stability, security of supply, and of course also competitiveness, because there's no way to achieve any of those two targets, and I'm not even mentioning climate change yet, without energy efficiency. And we know public, but also in the financial world. And before buying more, we should really apply the energy efficiency first principle. Before building new cables, new pipelines, etc., we should apply the energy efficiency principle at all levels, asking ourselves whether we really need it, or what other solutions are there in place. But why is this not happening? It's not happening because there's a certain wait and see attitude from households, but also from business. Sometimes the fruits are so low-hanging and so obvious, but they're out of the sort of day-to-day management and board and shareholder scope of running companies. So there's a number of deadlocks there that still justify, in our view, the continuation of the EU framework for attacking this and for making benefits come true for all those implicated. So we are assessing, as you know, we have assessed the NCPs, and there's a gap, there's an energy efficiency gap, and it is now our role at the EU level to sort of close that gap. And that has started with the launch of the EU Energy Efficiency Roadmap by our commissioner. He did that this year before the summer. So, and it's all about bringing people together and launch a number of various initiatives to do that, starting with the financing coalition, which is this big setup we did with private sector, but also with all member states, and now close to 60 financial institutions, to look at what type of financial instruments exist, what type of measures have to be built, what type of new tools we have to develop to help the energy efficiency take place at all levels. He also launched an action forum for energy efficiency with member states. He did that in the margins of the last energy councils and informal councils, and it will be launched officially with member states at Director General level in a couple of weeks, and then has a number of high-level meetings between the Commission and member states over the next 4 or 5 months to identify the various topics that need to be addressed to achieve our targets. The next year we have a very busy agenda again for the Commission in terms of energy policy proposals. The data center on energy efficiency package is coming. We're also going out with an electrification strategy, because we all know electrification equals energy efficiency, but at the same time there's a lot of waste heat and other energy that can be used. So we also combine that electrification strategy with a heating and cooling strategy. And we're also coming with a clean investment strategy a bit earlier, because we know there's a huge gap, notably in energy efficiency, but also other parts of the energy sector. So the MFF proposal is out. We are working very hard with both our colleagues and also Council and Parliament to shape it in a way that makes it most useful for all our sort of customers on the energy efficiency world. These are often smaller entities that would benefit from this new restructuring and simplification push that is in the next MFF. And we hope that can crystallize throughout the negotiations to make sure that the simplification benefits, especially those which are smaller and have less means to access sometimes complex public funding. But at the same time, we know the public funding is scarce, and hence we also developing with the financing coalition our own work, and that's also the unit that I'm working in. It's called Energy Efficiency Policy and Financing, because it's all about designing and developing those financing tools and that I mentioned earlier for the energy efficiency needs. So delivering on the roadmap will allow us hopefully to deliver on the 2030 target. But at the same time, we're also looking ahead. The transposition, as was mentioned, was 6 weeks ago, the deadline. All member states have notified. Only one has notified complete transposition. We're now analyzing whether the actual notifications and what's behind the notifications and the content of that, and then we'll take that forward as we usually do as the guardian of the treaty. And those transposition checks, together with all the lessons learned and the analysis that we're doing, will then help us shape the next decade. So the work for the post-2030 energy and climate framework has started. We are awaiting the climate law negotiations. The first sort of positions, if you can call them, from Parliament and Council are rather promising for us. And we know that the 2040 and also 2050 climate objectives are unattainable without more energy efficiency efforts. So we are in the process of discussing internally, but also externally, the shape of the architecture of the energy and climate world, and then what that means then for the energy efficiency directive and the future of the directive. And we all know there's a big push for simplification, and at the same time, we have to ensure there is stability and investor stability for the community and for the industry when it comes to the rules that are in place for 2030 and also beyond, and some of them are just actually now kicking in and taking effect. So it's important to take account of all of that. As usual, we of course are consulting member states. We will be running the classic impact assessments. There will be a new reference scenario out by the Commission as well, and all of this will provide the basis for this framework to come. Projects as this are extremely important for us as well, as you all know, and I don't need to repeat it to everybody, but just for the record, we all suffer from the frustration of slow data and maybe not aggregate enough data from Eurostat, which is the way it is for very good reasons. So we much appreciate this project and look forward to further inputs and how that can help us and basically making better policy making and also justifying the energy efficiency continuation. So thank you very much for this, and I hand over back to you, Jean-Sébastien.
Thanks a lot, Ivo. I think that was quite challenging to summarize in a few minutes all the initiatives that are on the table of the Commission these days. So that was very nice of you to make this in a concise way, and we can see that the Commission is very active these days, and that we should expect a lot of actions and publications in the coming months. You mentioned that energy efficiency and energy efficiency first were not happening enough so far. So that makes a good transition with our next speaker. I'm now happy to welcome to the stage Arianna Vitali, Secretary General of the Coalition for Energy Savings. You published just yesterday a new report that shows how the EED can be implemented and how good results can be achieved. So Arianna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Jean-Sébastien, for giving me the floor. And thanks to the previous speakers. Before maybe diving into the report directly, I would like just to say a few words on where we are now, building on what you just said and what Ivo mentioned already, mainly that further effort is definitely needed on energy efficiency to ensure that progress materialize. So the latest State of the Energy Union clearly showed us that the EU has a lot of efforts to do to achieve its 2030 final energy target and primary energy target. In final energy terms, the EU is still 17% away from the 2030 energy efficiency target, and the State of the Energy Union really highlights that 2.2% energy efficiency improvement will be needed between 2030 and 2030 to achieve the EED target. Now, if we compare that with the 2024 preliminary data of the European Environmental Agency, for 24, we see that the preliminary data shows an improvement in energy efficiency of only 0.9%, clearly away from the 2.2% that will be needed. So in a nutshell, this means that efforts really need to be maintained and increased in the next year. However, I mean, I think you can look at this from a negative perspective, but actually also from a more positive one. And the positive side of this is that the Energy Efficiency Directive, as Ivo just mentioned, is basically the transposition date has just passed. And if we look at the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, the transposition date is only in May next year. So this means basically that the positive results that the energy efficiency legislative framework can drive are still to be materialized, and I'm sure that we can see them materializing more in the next year. So that brings me to my report, to the report that we just published yesterday. I hope everybody can see it. And with this report, what the coalition is trying to do is actually to look at the glass half full. So of course, there is a lot of work to be doing. Of course, progress needs to increase. But actually, there are a lot of success stories. There is already a lot of progresses that is happening across EU countries, and that has been driven by energy efficiency legislation. Of course, not only the 2020-30 EED that is just starting, but also the previous edition of the EED and of the old package. So with our report, we have basically analyzed key success stories across countries, across three thematic themes. The first one, reducing energy costs and boosting competitiveness. The second, ensuring a just and affordable transition. And the third, fostering a secure, reliant, and integrating energy system. There are many success stories across the EU that we think can really also provide useful insights on how the Energy Efficiency Directive can be implemented by member states. There are best practices that are existing at the local and regional level that can really, from which we can learn. And also with our report, we also try to provide some useful input for the upcoming Commission initiative, being the Citizen Energy Package, the European Affordable Housing Plan, or the Electrification Action Plan. All these new initiatives can actually build on the current energy efficiency acquis, can build on the current progress and success, and push them one way forward also by creating useful enabling conditions. So again, this is our positive take on the situation. Looking at the half full glass, I'm an optimistic by nature. I know that a lot has to be done, but I'm also very much aware that the energy efficiency legislation has been an helpful and essential tool to make the benefits of energy efficiency appear for citizens and businesses. As the time is short, I would like maybe just to give you a hint of the success stories we are looking at on two areas. The first one is about energy costs and boosting competitiveness. And we have looked at a success story from Italy, and notably a very interesting approach that combines support from a regional energy agency, the regional energy agency from Friuli Venezia Giulia, that is helping businesses and companies to integrate the energy transition with clear guidance and a structured progress accompanying them in reducing energy consumption and also in ensuring they can electrify and uptake renewables. On energy efficiency particularly, this process is very comprehensive and ranges from combining energy audits to monitoring energy data flows, and also suggesting specific measures tailored to every specific company. With that, a small SME producing furniture was able actually to reduce its energy consumption by 30% between 2016 and 2024, while maintaining the same output of production. This is definitely an example that shows that energy efficiency increased competitiveness. And together with that, this SMEs was also able to access the tax credit scheme under Italy Transizione, so a tax rebate for companies that cut their energy use. I think from that, one of the key lessons learned is that when you have a structured policy framework that combines a European signal about the and European legislation with local support and national measures, all pushing in the same directions, companies can also find tools to reduce consumptions and increase competitiveness. So we thought that this was a good one to highlight. On the area of fostering a secure and resilient energy system, one of the examples that we are highlighting is the Polish Clean Air Program. Of course, this program is not new, and I'm sure most of the colleagues in the webinar know it. So it's a program that was born at the local level in Poland, really to respond to air quality concerns, and that focused action on renovating buildings and replacing the old fossil fuel heating that were mainly burning coal at the time. So this this program has really evolved since 2018, and in the new phases launched in 2025, the Clean Air program also include subsidies to uptake modern and electric heating, like heat pumps for the vulnerables, and also ensure that there will be the end of subsidies for gas boilers. What's interesting for me about this project, about this program, is that it is used by Poland to comply with the energy savings obligations under the Energy Efficiency Directive. So it's clearly according to ENTSO-MOVE project, the Polish will use it to comply with 25% of the schemes. But what's interesting is that this project takes an holistic approach. It takes an holistic approach that combines renovation, thermal insulation, replacement of old fossil fuel heating system, and support electrification. So to me, it shows that energy efficiency policy and buildings renovation can drive electrification, and it's really a tool that is essential, and this works in synergy with the Energy Efficiency Directive. So I think that's also a good example about taking as I said, an holistic approach to renovations, and while helping as well the more vulnerable consumers. So those are just two examples of the 16 success stories that you can find in our report. To conclude, I think our main takeaways, and this is my last slide, is that the energy efficiency legal acquis is working and has started driving adoption of actions by countries at by local authorities, businesses, and cities. There are a lot of best practices that are important to check and to promote. The second is though, as I've started, that the implementation must be prioritized, should not only follow its course, but it should be really supported. On that, I would also actually thank the European Commission for launching an infringement procedure against the 26 countries that have not notified full transposition. Of course, that's a bad news, meaning that member states have not taken implementation seriously of the EED, but it's a really good news that the European Commission is showing leadership and clearly prioritize current adoption. And finally, I think, as also hinted by Ivo, we know that we are in a simplification mandate, and that in the next decade, we are also setting a new framework for post 2030. I think our lessons learned is that once again the energy efficiency framework until now is delivering. There are key tools from the energy savings obligation to the long term given by the EU binding target that must be preserved. So really a plea here to optimize implementation, to make implementation smarter and simpler for authorities, but also to preserve what has worked and has delivered for the next decade. And I'll stop here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to intervene, and I'll give back the floor to Jean-Sébastien.
Thanks a lot, Diana, and especially for the two examples you highlighted. I think it was very interesting. The first one about Italy, showing the importance of multi-level, not only governance, but also implementation, the good coordination between the different level, the national and the local level, and the clean air program in Poland. That is a very good example of how energy efficiency can contribute to multiple benefits, because from the name, we know that this program is also aiming at better air quality, and you explained very well that it's also meant to tackle energy poverty, so the social dimension that Wolfgang mentioned earlier. Now I will come back to what is a core, let's say, the focus of ODYSSEE-MURE and data and analysis. Ivo, you already mentioned that the project is important in complementing the data available from Eurostat. But maybe before we take questions from the participants, at the same time, I encourage all participants to ask questions in the Q&A panel. Maybe you can tell us a bit more what data you would see as missing, or that the project could provide to support further implementation and acceleration in energy efficiency improvement, as both of you say that we need to go further on that way. But maybe you left. Okay, so if you are not with us currently, I will now turn to you, Ayana. No problem. We can come back to you later if it connects again. So that would be a similar questions, but maybe from the stakeholders' point of view. You mentioned the importance of having a clear framework, the policy framework for implementation. But do you see also a need to get more data about indicators, about policy measures, and whether that can help also the strategies of the stakeholders?
Yes, I think that's vital. I mean, to monitor progress, I think data are necessary. We set objectives, we set targets, but to make sure that those are achieved, we actually need to keep track and monitor very carefully whether the measures and the policies delivers. So I think that's fundamental, really, in that sense. I think data are also very important in a certain sense to communicate progress or to communicate delays. In that context, I mean, the rough data are important, but it's also very important to communicate them in a easily and understandable way for policymakers. Not all policymakers are energy efficiency experts, so I think we also need, as a community, to have strong data and be able to communicate in an easy way, in a way that is policy relevant, to ensure that they can be used. And here I think a good example in the previous or in the fact sheet of the ODYSSEE-MURE is that in one of your fact sheet, I think energy crisis, you say that considering if we consider energy savings and energy efficiency improvement since 1990, energy savings would be in 2023 the EU first fuel. I think you need the data to came to this statement, but it's also very important to communicate this statement in this very precise and telling way to really give visibility to the efficiency agenda.
Thanks a lot, Ayana, and that's good to hear that the work that we do can be useful also for stakeholders, not only for policymakers. Wolfgang, I remind from what Ivo said that he mentioned that okay, Eurostat data are good, but they might come a bit slow. So what can ODYSSEE-MURE offer on that side? I know that with Enerdata and the Fraunhofer team, you worked on that.
Yeah. Indeed, Ivo mentioned about a very important topic of short-term indicators. Ariana pointed to preliminary data from 2024, which is already an effort compared to 2025. But still, we have a statistical time horizon of 1 to 2 years. Compared to present, and the ODYSSEE-MURE project is in particular also working on this issue, and based on data which are available on a shorter period of time, there are efforts to project the most recent energy data to the present in a way, in order to understand where the travel goes. That is one important point, and the second important point is when it comes to understanding how we approach or we are not approaching the targets. I mentioned the decomposition tool, which allows to understand what are the factors behind the energy demand changes. I mean, with Eurostat, I can essentially see that I'm approaching or not approaching the targets, but I do not really have a good answer when, for example, I'm not achieving well the targets, and to understand what the policy contribution is, to understand what other factors contribute or encounter the savings. This is very important and can be done with the savings or with the data behind the ODYSSEE-MURE project.
Thanks, Wolfgang. Now we can turn to the questions from the participants. So I see already one to you and one to you, Wolfgang, about the project, and one to you, Ariana, about carbon taxation. But probably Wolfgang will also like to react on the second one. So let's start with the question on ODYSSEE-MURE. That's from Jos Denisten. He's asking whether ODYSSEE-MURE can give some support to parties that are looking to include energy saving solutions into regulation of member states.
Historically, the project has given a lot of support to, let's say, the European Union and also to the member states. Just to mention, many years ago, for example, in the first development of the Energy Performance Directive of buildings, the ODYSSEE-MURE project was providing inputs to shape this directive. The same happened with the predecessor of the Energy Efficiency Directive, the Energy Saving Directive, and the EED itself. So at the European Union level, but also to a number of member states where the data are used, where the policies are looked upon and compared. So I think this is really at the heart of what the project can provide. And we would be more than happy to discuss in detail, let's say, specific regulations, specific activities, and to have a look at this with the data, with the approaches, with the tools that we have developed in the project. So thank you very much for this question.
Thanks, Wolfgang. And now we turn to the question from Clara Kögel. She's asking if, to your opinion, what is the role of carbon or environmental taxation in the policy mix to improve energy efficiency at the household level? Maybe Ariana, you want to start, and then I see if Wolfgang and now also Christian Olo, who just joined, want to follow up on that one.
I mean, you could answer to this question from very different perspective, I think. I mean, if we take it simply from a household perspective, I think not every household is the same. So I think at the moment in which you put a clear taxation, I mean, assume taxation on energy, I think you need to make sure that the most vulnerable are not disproportionately affected by the increase of energy or the increase of other products. So I think in general, when we talk about household taxation, that's the first thing to keep in mind. Then if we look, I think, more broadly at the energy taxation in general, there is, I think, definitely a lot of steps to be doing. I mean, currently, and one of the biggest barrier as well to electrification is the differential price between the taxation on gas and electricity, especially in many countries. So in that sense, we could think to a certain type of environmental taxation that favor the most clean sources that encourage electrification and efficiency, compared to others that tax then more fossil fuels or productions and uses that are less efficient. So I think that's a part of the answer. I could have also answered looking at ETS2, but I'll leave it for now.
Wolfgang, do you want to add something on this one?
Yeah, very, very shortly. For sure, taxation of carbon, of energy is an important instrument and is used in a large number of countries. But when looking at the MURE database in particular, one sees that there is a large number of different instruments contributing to improve energy efficiency, which are of non-economic, non-taxation nature, and which are equally important. I mean, Ivo mentioned things like eco-design in a broader sense, and there are similar policies which are not linked at all to taxation, but which are extremely important. And perhaps the second point, Ivo was reacting a bit allergically to the sufficiency comment from my side. I totally agree with him naturally that this is a difficult issue, but it's worthwhile to explore, as we know that most likely we need to adapt some of our behaviors. That's one point. And second, we have a number of instruments which are influencing behavior already quite substantially. For example, in France, we have a bonus-malus scheme that influences behavior, whether I take a larger or a smaller car, and similar. And taxation is a very strong instrument to influence behavior in a certain sense. So we are already there, but it's important to discuss what exactly is behind this expression sufficiency policies, because it's a very broad one. And actually I also share Ariana's view on the distributional questions related to taxation. I think this is a very, very important aspect. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Wolfgang. And now I'm happy also to welcome to the stage Christian Noll, who joined us, and he's managing director at DNF. And we discussed the EU framework, the development in a few countries. And now, well, first, Christian, feel free to comment on the questions on carbon taxation if you wish, and then you can present the German status, let's say, of the implementation of the EED and what it means also for the German energy efficiency industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Sorry for being late because I'm on parallel at a conference in Vienna where I just left the stage and jumped in here. But I'm very grateful for your question on carbon pricing, because this somehow builds some ideal bridge on what I wanted to say. Sorry, those are my German slides. That we are in a situation in all over Europe with historically high energy prices. And if you believe in effects of carbon pricing or energy pricing, we should see a run on energy efficient solutions. And we don't see this. We see quite the opposite, that high energy prices are creating some kind of inertia to the market. Of course, we saw a drop in energy consumption, which was maybe largely caused by consumers from 2001 to 2002 by, I think it's now around 8%. That's what the environmental agency in Germany says. We don't know how sustainable this will be, but this is a price effect which is much higher, or the price increase we have through the energy crisis than what a carbon pricing scheme could have ever affected. Just to build on that, in Germany we have a regulation that the carbon costs are split. It's an average 50-50 amongst tenants and landlords. But this price effect by carbon price alone is just .something% of the whole energy prices. So we would have to face a very high carbon price to have those effects. And then, of course, you come into a situation where you have a very high social constraint. And this is, of course, the point why we are now in the discussion in other European countries to say, okay, we don't want to jump to a carbon pricing level. I think in Germany it's about 55 euros for housing and transport at the moment, and it seems to be unimaginable for other countries. And on top, now the signal to postpone the ETS2 also creates a wrong signal to the market. That people will hold back investment, and companies or housing companies who have already planned to invest in carbon savings are now, of course, confused what will happen. And we see ever and ever again that policymakers are not willed to be strict on pricing policy. So it's not a real market instrument as it was said in the past by some actors. It's also a political instrument, and the price is set by political will. So yes, this leads us to the situation I wanted to start with in the German market, and I think the same applies for the European market in a whole, that the political irritations we have now creates a backlog on investments. So the graph you can see on the right shows investments in energy efficiency in the industry. So it has not returned to the pre-pandemic level. We have now discussions in Germany to weaken the Energy Efficiency Act, which slows down the uptake of energy management systems. In the building sector, we have a renovation rate which is at a historic low. In energy services, we see that running contracts remain stable, but there are hardly any new products or investments. This is also due to framework conditions. I don't want to deep dive in this because very special German regulation thing. And we have to conclude in general that high energy prices at the moment act more as a barrier than a driver for investments. Yes, Germany was always claimed for a long time to be a champion on energy efficiency, and thanks to ODYSSEE-MURE, or not thanks to, it's sad to see that, but we can see that Germany has a modernization backlog. It's now ranking bottom place 23 on the scoreboard when it comes to energy efficiency progress. And this is why policy is needed to reverse this trend. Yes, on the German Energy Efficiency Act, which set into force in November 2003, this was the first time, and this was before the deadline of the EED, that Germany has set itself a energy reduction target of 26.5% until 2030. The most important point is, of course, Article 8 and the measures counting towards that. There are existing and updated laws like the building regulation and ordinances building up on this, which contribute as strategic measures to Article 8. But there are also some measures which are directly implemented in the energy efficiency law, which derive from the EED, like the public sector obligation. But there are also some obligations going beyond minimum targets. But as they are going beyond EU minimum standards, they are eligible to count awards the 1.5%. We have a discussion in Germany at the moment that Germany is gold plating and doing too much, but in fact, it is needed to go beyond EU minimum standards to contribute to the 1.5% target. So we have some things which go beyond EU law. Those are higher thresholds for energy management systems, requirements for data centers and waste heat, but also other measures can count. And the energy efficiency first principle, it's not implemented yet. And it also affects a lot of other policies like tenancy law, energy, electrification tax, all sorts of infrastructure planning, and so on. So this is how it's implemented at the moment. What does it deliver? We are facing also a dilution of the energy efficiency progress at the moment, unfortunately. So when you see the actual consumption level, we are halfway there, minus 30% of the 26.5% compared to 2008. The NECP reported last summer would have delivered 22.4%, but you must say that it included measures which were not implemented yet. And we now have discussions about setbacks, for example, the 65% renewable heating regulation, for example. And this will drive us further beyond. And of course, when carbon pricing is weakened, this will also move us even maybe below the current level, or maybe a freeze of the current savings. We don't know. So because we also know from statistics from Eurostat and from Fraunhofer EASY that energy productivity did not increase but decrease in the last year, unfortunately. We see the situation with high energy prices and a very high energy import dependence. In Germany, it's more than 2/3, which create a large burden to industry. We see declining investments in a market with around 1 million jobs in Germany. The rollbacks in the energy efficiency law and the buildings law already create an investment backlog, even though they are just announced and there is no draft regulation, not even a draft regulation there. We also have discussions about that Germany goes beyond EU requirements. There are calls to implement it one by one. But to implement it on a one-by-one level would mean no weakening because we already have the started infringement procedure to implement things which are open, which is the energy efficiency first principle. The new government is about to have an auction on new gas power plants. So implementing efficiency first should at least mean to have on the same level parallel energy efficiency auctions. We have open requirements for the 3% renovation rate on public buildings, which could create an investment push, and it's not implemented yet. On parallel, of course, there are complaints about too high bureaucracy, and we must accept that there are some things, not only in the energy efficiency law, but in energy regulation, taxation, and so on, which create unnecessary burden because they are very similar things to be reported via different channels. And of course, you can streamline that. You can also make the energy management system requirements more practical, for example, for companies who implement energy management systems for the first time, or if you have a look at the transport sector, maybe other instruments would be more suitable than energy management systems, which were meant in manufacturing companies to have to do a job here. We have also, in addition, a waste heat register, which is a very interesting thing because it has identified more than 300 terawatt hours of technical waste heat potential in Germany. So just to give you a notion how much energy is this, you could easily replace 15 million gas boilers by this potential on a calculation base, because we know many companies or data centers, they are not inside the city, but maybe on greenfields more often. But this potential is there, and there are also use cases to make use of that partly on greenfield. We have a situation on the energy efficiency market that ESCOs are not equally treated, still not equally treated in funding programs and regulation. And this is why we follow very interested discussions going on in the world and in Europe about market-based schemes like super ESCOs, for example. We know in developing countries, this is a big discussion. DENIF has made a suggestion on such an instrument already in 2012, was called the Market-Based Energy Efficiency System MEAS. And we have to look on all those energy price reliefs to link them to energy efficiency. Yes, why is it worth it? I've already said that Germany still imports more than 2/3 of its energy consumption. This is above the EU level. This is, of course, far above China or the US, which are a net exporter. So if we would rely on our own energy source, our domestic energy sources, on the 27th of April, lights, machines, traffic, everything in Germany would have stopped. So we also have a very high geopolitical vulnerability. Donald Trump has announced this several times that Germany and Europe are relying on that. Without building renovation, this would mean to electrify the building sector would need to double peak load by more than 200 new gas power plants. So this shows we have to do both electrification and renovation on parallel. And also in the industry sector, we can easily save more than 20 billion euros a year by cost-beneficial energy efficiency measures. So the potentials are there. Biggest chunk is in process heat. That energy efficiency works has been proven. We have a decoupling of consumption and growth. So our today's consumption would be significantly higher if BIP or GDP growth would be directly affected the final energy consumption. But recently, as already said, we had a decline in energy productivity. So since the year is ending, it's also time for I hope not wishful thinking, but some wishes how to close the gap and boost the economy. One idea is to tender what is left to close the gap, so 1.5% minus existing measures competitively. The other one is we have this say-so one in, one out principle, which is mostly meant in politics to say, okay, if we introduce a new law, we have to remove another one to reduce bureaucratic burden. We should have a corresponding method also in energy politics to say, okay, if we build 1 gigawatt, we should take 1 or 2 gigawatts out of the system on parallel. So-called negawatts, and we should discuss a new deal with our industry. In the past, we had a deal of the German industry and the German government on energy taxes, which were coupled on energy efficiency progress. This is not existing anymore, and we should come up with such a new deal and link energy price subsidies again to clear commitments to energy efficiency progress, or what I would call it. Maybe some of you still know the term of burden sharing. So in fact, it's an opportunity sharing obligation. We could maybe think about that companies who don't want to implement energy saving measures themselves to make those available, for example, via a protected platform. So that was in a rush what I have prepared to your question, and unfortunately, I see we're a little bit over time, but I think that's still fine.
That's all fine, Christian, and I think that your presentation was very informative, not only about the German situation, but also for your proposals. And for example, I would take out the one in, one out to illustrate the energy efficiency first principle. That's a nice way to see it. And the way you describe the German situations also remind us that it takes a lot of time and effort to develop energy efficiency markets, and then it's never granted forever. So that's unfortunately what you described, that uncertainties and let's say policy gaps may create bad pressure on the market players. So let's hope, as you say, that next year will bring positive news on that side. If Ariana and you can stay just 1 more minute, there is a last question from the participants that will also, let's say, close the loop with what Wolfgang raised at the beginning of the webinar. I see that Wolfgang, you already answered to Stefan, but I will read it loud and let Ariana and Christian comment. So I will not read the whole comment because it's a bit long, but let's say in short, Stefan reminded that energy efficiency is not only about behaviors, but also about structural measures. And more generally, yeah, the question first to you, Ariana, whether the Coalition for Energy Savings continue to support savings, and more specifically to support an energy savings target for 2040. I guess that's an easy one for you.
Yes, that's an easy one for me. And definitely when I talk about the efficiency framework that delivers and continuation of the framework, we really believe that we still need a long-term signal on energy efficiency for 2040. Also, as Ivo correctly said, I mean, the EU will never achieve the 2040 climate target without energy efficiency. If you look at the 3 different scenarios that were modeled on the impact assessment, it's clear that all of them include efficiency. So we need a continuation of policy. We need a new framework that for 2040, of course, the target will be the important one to give the signal, and then we'll need to as well look at the measures. We have been discussing that there is a simplification tendency in this current mandate. I think things can be improved, but we should refrain from taking out articles and provisions because this will not give a clear signal and stability to businesses, to investors, and all stakeholders.
Thanks a lot, Ayana and Christian. Maybe before you follow up on this, if you wish, there is also questions directed to you from Sam Thomas. And that's also a nice question for us because it's a bit about benchmarking between policy measures. So that's one thing that we promote also through ODYSSEE-MURE. He's asking, do you see the Indian performance achieve trade scheme as a potential model for the industry scheme you mentioned? Or is also referring to the UK climate change agreements as a possible source of inspiration as well?
Okay, so I understand this more as a comment and a recommendation and a question. I will have a look to it. Thank you, Thomas. Samuel.
Okay, and maybe that's also a suggestion for us, ODYSSEE-MURE to make some benchmarking on these policies. We are a bit behind, so I will stop here and maybe I need to Wolfgang for a concluding remark. And I will first thanks a lot Ayana and Christian for joining us today, as well Ivo, even if he could not stay until the end. And I really also encourage you to register for our next webinar on the 16th of December. We will also speak about energy efficiency in the industry with the most recent data that Enerdata will present. And Wolfgang, if you want to conclude on this.
Yeah, as we are over time, only very shortly, I want to thank the speakers here for this opening webinar. And as you already underlined, Jean-Sébastien, we will have the initial focus on industrial decarbonization. We touched upon this several times. I think it's a very interesting aspect, which also has bottom-up perspectives, which came through, for example, in Christian's and in Ariana's presentation. And I think these are very important to strengthen. So thanks to all speakers. Thanks to you, Jean-Sébastien, for organizing this so perfectly and for your questions. And I'm looking forward to have all of you for the next webinar on the 16th of December, which will be guided by Enerdata and focus on the industrial sector, as mentioned already by Jean-Sébastien. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.